On the right, a Nazi. On the left, a Soviet communist. One far right, one far left. They look like sworn enemies from completely different worlds. So, what's the biggest difference between them? It all comes down to capital. The Soviets completely eradicated big businesses and the capitalist class, while the Nazis let the capitalists keep making a fortune. Now, some might argue that by late World War II in 1944, the Nazi government had taken control of almost all economic directives. Doesn't that make them exactly like the Soviets? Not really. Ultimately, the Nazis only seized control of the operations, while the ownership of the factories remained strictly private. This is what we call a command capitalism. And because they never truly wiped out the capitalist class, the Nazis have always been categorized as far right. But even though the Nazis and fascists buddied up with big business after taking power, in their early founding days, they actually sounded a lot like radical anti-capitalist leftists. Take Mussolini, for example. Aside from the fact that he started out as a member of the Italian Socialist Party, he explicitly packed his fascist manifesto with anti-capitalist rhetoric. But obviously, nobody cared. He quickly pivoted to the far right and embraced anti-communism to pander to big business. As for the Nazis, their full official name was the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Well, sounds pretty left-wing. In their 25-point program published in 1920, points 11, 13, 14, and 17 carried heavy radical left-wing economic policies. But these were mostly populist slogans to win over working class support, not an actual blueprint for socialism. Just like Mussolini, Hitler eventually started cozying up to the bourgeoisie, reframing those anti-capitalist points as strictly targeting Jewish industrialists. Most importantly, around 1925, after the Nazi Party was reorganized, a distinct left-wing faction emerged within the party, led mainly by the Strasser brothers. Simply put, they also believed in German supremacy, but specifically German worker supremacy, combining socialist economic redistribution with radical nationalism. However, the younger brother, Otto, who held the most radical left-wing views, was expelled after a bitter fallout with Hitler as early as 1930. Meanwhile, the elder brother, Gregor, stayed in the party until 1932, when the German chancellor tried to recruit him into the government. It sparked a bitter power struggle with Hitler. Then he quit. But in the Night of the Long Knives in 1934, to appease traditional industrialists and the military elite, Hitler purged Gregor, along with the SA leadership that supported him at the time. This ideology, hating American capitalism while simultaneously despising Soviet communism, is what we call the third position. It became the go-to label for modern far-right groups who didn't want to explicitly call themselves Nazis. But what if you took radical nationalism and fused it directly with Soviet-style class struggle? That gives you something even wilder. National Bolshevism. These guys actually hated Hitler. To them, the Nazis keeping private property around was a cowardly surrender to capitalists. Their ultimate dream was a German supremacist state with a fully communist economy, even arguing Germany should ally with the USSR to take down the West. But only a few years later, many of them were rounded up and sent to concentration camps by the Nazis. But the ideology didn't die there. Back in 1993, after the Soviet collapse, the Nazbol Party was formed, and getting banned in 2007. Honestly though, the resurgence of National Bolshevism in Russia wasn't that surprising. After all, signs of nationalism had already begun creeping into the Soviet Union back during the Stalin era. The early Bolsheviks under Lenin and Trotsky were hardcore internationalists. They saw Russia merely as a matchstick to ignite world revolution. But Stalin didn't give a shit about that. He purged the old internationalist, pushed the concept of socialism in one country. When World War II broke out, Soviet wartime propaganda stopped emphasizing global proletarian solidarity, but instead called on everyone to defend the sacred Russian motherland, revived Tsarist military heroes like Alexander Nevsky, and even made peace with the Russian Orthodox Church. Here's another quick story. This man was Karel Radek, born in Galicia, who later returned to Russia with Lenin, and became one of the core leaders of the Comintern. Later, in Germany in 1923, There was a far-right Free Corps member named Albert Leo Sclageter, who was sentenced to death for bombing railways in the French-occupied Ruhr. So what does this have to do with Radek? After Sclageter was executed by firing squad, Radek, a top communist official, praised this far-right figure in a public speech. That was weird. But perhaps Radek was trying to use this speech to win over right-wing youth in Germany, even though it wasn't very successful. By the way, in 1925 Radek went on to serve as the rector of Moscow Sun Yat-sen University. Funny enough,
蒋经国
and
邓小平
were actually studying there at the exact same time. Alright, sorry for getting a bit sidetracked. Anyway, as you can see from today's video, both the far right and far left are actually very pragmatic. They aren't always against using whatever helps them hold on to power, but their hatred for liberal democracy often drove them to strikingly similar playbooks. History is full of other examples of the third position and syncretic politics, like the Spanish Phalange or the Ba'ath Party. If you'd like to see me cover more of this, let me know in the comments below. I might just do a part 2. Yeah, that's all, bye.